Welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to resilience, exercising, testing, business continuity, emergency management, anything that can help you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am the only Alex Fullick there. I am really easy to find, and I do respond to everything I get. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, you've heard me say that a lot. And today, believe it or not, someone took me up on that offer. So today we're going to talk about exercises and decision making during crises. And I'd like to welcome to the show today, Dotan Sagi. Dotan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you for having us, or me having me. And I was thinking about that. How many Alexes are there on LinkedIn? I'm going to check it later.
Oh, there might be a whole bunch, but there's only one Alex Fullick.
There's only one.
So far, anyway. Now, I know I've had some communications back and forth with you and with your assistant, Chelsea. Hi, Chelsea. Big shout out to Chelsea there. So I know a little bit about you and what you do, but could you take a minute and tell us about yourself, what you do, and how you got into what you do?
So I started quite a long time ago. I come from the Homeland Security sector. I've worked there for a multitude of years, and part of it was work in the crisis management and preparing for crisis. I used to work for an airline. I was head of the training academy. I sat in a command control room through 2 terror attacks, so I know what it is when people write their procedures, plan for them, train, and then when it happens, how the unexpected always takes you left and right. So with that in mind, I said I've got to help and find a way to prepare for a crisis, and I started working as a consultant, and we worked with tabletop exercises and wargaming. And we decided that the best way to do that was no more sitting around the table. And we built a system that would analyze people's behavior while they were managing crisis, understand what they're doing and why they're doing it in order to get better. So I started as someone that sat in a crisis. And today we've built this system that allows you to prepare better for crisis.
Well, welcome to the show. I'm looking forward to hearing some of the things you have to say because some of the information that Chelsea provided as I read through, going, that'll make for an interesting question. I can't wait to hear what Toten has to say about that. So let's start. You mentioned exercises and war games. So the natural question is, what's the difference?
So there are many ways to prepare for crisis, but the 2 most common used terms, and people may find them a little different and relate to them different, are tabletop exercises and wargaming. While tabletop exercises are more, led with a facilitator that leads a discussion of what happened, how would you react to certain circumstances. And the first time that I said, hey, this has to change is when I participated in those tabletops. You sit in a room, there's a beautiful presentation, everyone sits around the table, and you ask, okay, this has happened. What would you do? And what would you do? And what would you do? And, everyone has a discussion of what they would do, how it would affect each other. While a war game is more a scenario-based where there is someone that is also playing, either human or AI, by the way, the other side, the events that you will deal with, those actions and challenges, and players find themselves interacting with each other in order to solve those problems. So that's the main and the biggest difference. We started in the tabletop exercise domain, and I said, well, people are sitting around that table and looking at those PowerPoints and saying what they would do, but I've been in crisis, and it doesn't feel like that. And it doesn't work like that, because in real life things are different, and that's why I sought to find that solution that would integrate the wargaming and the tabletop together and provide that solution. But that's the main difference.
Is that like a what do they call it? LARPing, live action role play?
It is.
Even making people feel as though they're in a disaster, not
Exactly.
just hypothetically in a disaster.
Exactly. And we focus mainly but on the decisions, because we know today that most of organizations and people and individuals, they prepare for a crisis, they read a procedure and they think that's the way they're going to act. But in reality, in an organization, people don't sit in the same room when an event starts. You may have conflicting pieces of information. You may have different people getting different pieces of information. And we know today that the main attributor to succeeding in managing a crisis is the ability to interact. By the way, internally as an organization, but also externally with your attackers, with your other stakeholders, and so on and so forth. So that's where we put the focus. How do you interact, and how do those interactions influence the end result?
I guess in a way, the war games challenges all your assumptions, because I like how you said, people are looking at the pretty PowerPoints hanging up, and they're thinking happy path, okay, this is what I would do. Well, yeah, but under a different circumstance, a real situation, to your point, no, that's not how you're going to act. So you're really challenging a lot of people's assumptions and what they've put in place.
I totally agree. And I would take it even one step further. Let's talk about procedures. Organizations sit, they write their procedure, their SOP, their protocol, playbook, everyone calls it a different name. Maybe they even got it as a regulation. Now, you would expect an organization to say, hey, if I have a protocol or procedure, that's how I would expect to behave, right? This is how I would like to be when a crisis happens. How many times during an exercise do we compare how we simulate or real events to how the procedure was written? There is no ability to do it if you don't do it on a system, if you don't collect the data. And one of the reasons I went into this was not only let's analyze how people make their decisions, but also let's see how they compare their real behavior / simulated behavior to what they expected. Writing a procedure and protocol is easy, and I'm not dissing anyone that writes procedures. It's a very hard job, but it's easy to write something on paper and put it in a cupboard and put a V for compliance. The question is, do you really think you're going to act like that and behave like that when the crisis happens? And have you ever tested how you really act in comparison to that? And the truth is that very few organizations do. And that turns your procedure and protocol into something that's a piece of paper, really, that you don't really address.
It becomes a paperweight.
It does. It does. If you use it as a paperweight. Sometimes it's just in a cupboard and no one knows the key to open the cupboard and find it. So yes, it's important, but I believe that procedure and protocol is something that has to be like a living organism within the organization that has to be tested and validated all the time, and not validated in a clean room where there's the air condition and nothing's happened. Validate it through examining your simulated behavior versus your expected behavior.
Well, let's get into that. If you're having a war game and you've got a procedure that says under XYZ circumstance, you will do 1, 2, 3. But then that circumstance really happens. It happens off hours. The people you think are available aren't available. So you're no longer acting or responding the way that plan does. How do you go about, how do you just go about that? Because all of a sudden your plan, as good as it may be, and as thorough as it may be, suddenly isn't helping you.
So I'll start with this, and I don't want to ruin it for all those consultants and everyone out there, but the reality is the procedure and real life will never coincide 100%. It ain't gonna happen, because real life will throw the unexpected, those curveballs at you left and right as this event evolves. But within every process, I believe there should be anchors. We call them KPIs. KPIs because key performance indicators, it's easy to bring in from the business world and for everyone to relate to. So if I have a protocol that X and Y has to happen, I can choose which ones, have to happen. Those are events that declaring crisis has to happen. Alerting in a cyber data breach the authorities within an X amount of hours, depends on which country I am, is a must. It's regulatory. I have to do it. Doesn't matter what happened around. So the question is when I put this protocol, when I take that procedure and I build it in a flowchart form? Am I able to say to myself, which of all of these are actions that lead me towards achieving those KPIs? Because the KPIs are the important part. And there are many ways and many paths to reach there. So when we do these simulations, I don't check if you're doing everything exactly as the procedure. If you're doing it exactly as the procedure, it's either the scenario is not a good one or someone is playing around and tinkering with that scenario. In reality, it will be different. But we are checking, are the KPIs being achieved? Are specific things being done at a specific time they were supposed to happen with the right people involved in getting information and giving information? So you can, if you learn how those KPIs are achieved, and there may be many paths to reach those KPIs, then that's okay. But if you simulate, and you simulate the different scenarios, then you're also able to say, you know what, my procedure has one way to reach that KPI because we are linear in the way that we think, but maybe there are another 2 or 3 paths that can be gained from knowledge from people, or because people are people and they may have even political interests within the organization that lead them in a certain path. So if they reach that KPI, that's okay. Why shouldn't that branch be part of my new procedure? Why can't I have a procedure with several branches? Why does my procedure have to be on paper? Why can't it be digital with branches? And when I take one branch, the rest disappear. And I just, continue as I achieve my KPIs. That's what we believe in, and that's what we examine all the time. Now, if you know how you achieve those KPIs, I can predict if you're going to achieve your future KPIs as well, because I learn how you make decisions. I may find that the unique Alex is making good decisions only when he works with Dotan. When we work together, we achieve our KPIs better. But we may also find the opposite. So it depends on how open we are to learn from those things. We focus on KPIs.
Well, I've got a couple of questions for you. The first one is, should our plans and procedures then, from what you've seen, be more, I don't want to say general in focus rather than specific, because if they're too specific, then it can really trip you up. But if they're general enough that gets you thinking, then you have a better chance of responding. What do you think about that?
I don't think there's a one answer fits all. It depends. Are we talking tactical or strategical? The more strategic it is, the more we need to give space for those things. Right. The more tactical, do this, do that. And a crisis may have tactical portions, but it may also have strategical portions. So you may include all of the above. I will tell you this in procedures. We've learned, and we have a lot of statistics about this, that, for instance, 38% of people that don't work according to their procedure in a crisis, the main reason is, I'll answer this one, the next one you'll answer. The main reason is they don't know they're in a crisis. So the number one contributor to not working is, people usually say they don't know their procedure. I don't even start with the procedure. In most cases, people do not have a situational awareness of the situation they're in. We do see, and this is why I raised this, a correlation to the procedure itself. When procedures start with do this and do that, there's a lower level of adherence. If there is a procedure that starts with an explanation why this procedure exists, a small paragraph, there is a higher level of adherence. So you show me the first words in your procedure, I can already start to predict how people will, what percentage they will adhere to their own procedures. People need to understand. They're not robots. We'll talk about AI all the time, but humans are humans. They need to understand why they're doing. If they understand, then the procedure, the event can be a little different. You don't have to write exactly each, scenario, how it will unfold. They will be able to connect A to B and understand, and from there, begin a process.
Yeah, I've seen many a plan that have all these different scenarios, and then when something happens, that scenario is not covered. So they go, well, now what do I do? My plan isn't any good. Well, actually, if you pull some of that information out, there are some good bits in there that can help you, but you can't find it anymore. It's been buried.
Exactly. And from there, we can go into the length of procedures. I mean, Alex, how many procedures have you seen that are so long and so heavy? They look fantastic, by the way. You know, they're good paperweights. They look fantastic. They're shiny. But we already know today that in 28% of the events that people don't work according to their procedures because they don't know what they're supposed to do. And there we see a correlation with the length of the procedure. Procedures that are up to 5 pages long, the adherence level is 91%. From page number 6, there is a decrease of 24%. So you tell me the first words of your procedure and you tell me the length of your procedure, I can already start predicting how your people will adhere to their procedures.
Yeah, that's true. The more there is for them to read, the less well, you don't have time for it. Let's start with
No
that.
one reads.
It's too long to read. So, if it's short and sweet, I've got time to skim it or read through it or, whatever the case may be, pull out what I need. But if it's page after page after page, it's like, I don't have time for this, fine, and it just gets tossed off to the side.
And I also think that in this new generation that we have of younger people, and I'm not saying good or bad, maybe it should be even through video and not through written documentation, because the attention span to read something that is more than 5 pages is much lower.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I'm just raising a question.
Yeah, use the technology that's available to get your message across. They were writing plans, documentation goes back decades. Well, we've changed. So,
We've changed immensely.
yeah, that same approach may not be applicable anymore or may not be as helpful as it once was. So,
Agree.
On that note, we've come to the end of our first segment. We're talking with Dotan Sagi today about decision-making in crisis management and war games, which I really like how you describe doing those. I'd love to do that to somebody someday. And we will be right back. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.